Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. If you're new here, hi, I'm Dominika. I garden on my 17-meter square terrace that's in the shade for most of the day. We are zone 8A, hot and humid summers, cold, fairly dry winters. And my goal for today is to do a little bit of work in my veggie garden. So this is the area of my balcony where I keep most of my edibles, well, hence why I call it veggie garden. So I have a little bit of work to do because I had a lot of things planted for spring, but now it's ridiculously hot. We have temperatures ranging between 35 and 37 degrees Celsius nearly every day. So all of my spring crops are done. So I'm gonna harvest the remains. I'm gonna give this whole area a little bit of a cleanup, and then we're gonna plant some new fresh things for summer. So this is the look on my entire balcony. It's very long, but it's also very narrow. It's about 1.3 meters wide. And this little corner here I call my veggie garden. I have my vertical planter in here and a couple of pots on the floor. There's not much to see at this time of the year. We have some summer flowering bulbs sprouting. So in my vertical planter I grew arugula. We have still a little bit of arugula to finish, to harvest. I had spinach, I have alpine strawberries, I had two different types of lettuce, and on top I have micro dwarf tomatoes that are just ripening. I grow 6 different varieties of micro dwarf tomatoes in my garden. Micro dwarfs, they do really well in shady gardens. These receive maybe 2.5 hours of sunlight. These are Nina Neutron, that's why they're teeny tiny, but there are micro dwarfs with slightly larger fruit. These are not ripe yet. These are funny plum orange. And I have also the other varieties are here on the railings because the railings receive the most sunlight. I also had blueberry bush in this pot that I decided to repot earlier, a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately with the temperatures we have, it didn't make it. I have some zucchinis that I'm trying. I had some success with zucchinis in the past, so I'm trying 2 varieties. Not sure if it's gonna give me anything. I have a lot of fruit, but will they actually ripen? Will they actually grow? This one is not bad. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna start by harvesting the remains of arugula. Arugula is one of my favorite leafy green crops. It grows super fast. Like from seed to harvest, you can have arugula in less than a month, which is really awesome, and you can just keep cutting it and keep harvesting and it grows back. But arugula doesn't really like hot temperatures. It's a cool weather crop, so it tends to bolt in summer. So that's why I'm gonna be planting something else. And if you are wondering why I have CDs hung in here, it's because birds, blackbirds especially, they keep digging in my pots because I have a lot of earthworms in my containers, and the blackbirds, they literally nearly destroyed my entire crop. At some point I came back from work and my entire crop was on the floor because they just kept digging in this container, and this kind of reflects the light, makes them afraid, so they stopped digging. It works really well actually. So I'm gonna clean this whole thing. I'm not gonna be changing the soil. I'm gonna refresh the soil a little bit. I'm gonna just scrape the top layer maybe, or not even. I'm also removing lettuce. There's more roots in here, so I will have more soil to refill. But I'm trying to keep as much as possible. Alright, so I'm gonna start by adding more soil to my containers. I'm just using universal potting mix. I don't ever buy any specific potting mixes, just universal potting mix. I add a nice layer of organic matter, which is something that I did earlier this season, so I'm not gonna add more. And then I like to add a little bit of vermiculite. I have some vermiculite left in here because vermiculite is a mineral that helps to retain soil moisture, which is great, especially when you have containers that are as shallow as these, that don't hold a lot of soil. Vermiculite is really a game changer. I always add it to my summer planters, any hanging baskets, any smaller containers where you know you will have to water regularly. I need to have some leafy greens in my garden. So in this bottom planter, I'm gonna be planting lettuce. This type of lettuce doesn't mind the heat. There are different types of lettuce. Obviously, some lettuce can be grown year round. Some lettuce is more adapted for cooler temperatures. And there are types of lettuce that you can enjoy even when it's really hot in summer. So I'm gonna be planting it in the bottom planter. I have 12 starts, I think 12 or 16. And it's called lettuce rafale. I usually grow my own lettuce from seeds, but I've been a bit busy recently, so I just bought these starts at the garden center, which is very practical. And they are organic, so that's great. I also try to avoid planting at the back of the planter, because then it's harder to water and the plants really don't get any sunlight at all. Lettuce doesn't need direct sunlight, but it still needs good light levels. Like you see here, for example, we don't have any direct sunlight, but it's pretty good light levels, whereas at the back it's quite dark, and the veggies, the leafy greens that I tend to plant at the back don't really grow as well. So I just kind of focus on the front. Here, this one we can plant in here. Alright, I'm gonna water everything at the end, as per usual. Traditional strawberries usually need around 4 to 5 hours of direct sunlight to really grow healthy and to produce tasty, sweet fruit. But alpine strawberries can grow even in full shade, even if you don't have any direct sunlight at all. If your balcony or terrace is facing north, you can still successfully grow alpine strawberries. I grew these from seeds and I've had them for years and years, and that's also one difference between alpine strawberries and the traditional strawberry. Traditional strawberry gets exhausted after 3-4 seasons and you have to buy new plants. Alpine strawberries can go on for years and years and years. They are true perennial plants. One mistake that I made, I guess, is I added a layer of compost this season, a compost that I have never used before. And I think it was just too strong, too potent, and it kind of burned my alpine strawberries. They are still producing, as you can see. We still have some berries. I still get to harvest some berries. I have yellow variety, Yellow Wonder, and red variety, but I definitely need to give them a little bit of a cleanup. And yeah, I have something else that I'm gonna try this year. So something that I want to try this year are strawberries called Mara de Bois, which are strawberries that resemble alpine strawberries. They have larger fruit, as you can see. I picked one that already had some fruit, but they are still smaller than a traditional strawberry, and the flavor resembles that of wild strawberries. And apparently this variety does really well in partial shade as well, so we will give it a try. I bought 3 plants, which I'm gonna plant above my alpine strawberries in here. I'm gonna space them out because I'm hoping to keep them for many years to come. And I'm gonna add, obviously, as I said, a little bit more soil because I don't have much left in here. Alright, the vertical planter is ready. We have lettuce at the bottom, we have alpine strawberries. I gave them a bit of a cleanup, but they have seen better days. Hopefully they bounce back. We have our strawberry, new strawberry, and then we have micro dwarf tomatoes that are gonna stay here until the end of the season. Alright, now in terms of herbs, there's actually quite a lot that you can grow and harvest from your shady container garden. Even if you don't have any direct sunlight at all, there's plenty of herbs you can grow. You can grow mint, you can grow lemon balm, chives, parsley, coriander, basil does pretty well in the shade even without any direct sunlight at all, as long as you put it in like a bright indirect light situation like what we have here, like not hidden kind of somewhere behind the pot in like a full shade kind of situation, but in a bright indirect light. Basil does really well, especially in the high heat climates like ours where the temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius. Even in the shade, basil actually can benefit from that protection from that hot scorching afternoon sun. So I prefer to plant herbs separately in their individual pots. You can totally mix different herbs together. Some herbs do well together, some herbs don't. It's just a question of watering. Some like Mediterranean herbs like sage or rosemary, thyme, These can be planted together because they don't really like a lot of water, versus, for example, chives and basil, parsley. These prefer a little bit more humid environment. They like to be watered regularly, so these can go together. I have chives, an enormous plant of chives that I keep as a perennial plant. Chives are winter hardy, so is parsley. So for this season I picked a fresh parsley plant. I have basil and I have dill. Now dill is not a shade loving plant, it really needs full sun, but I really love dill. I love it on freshly cooked potatoes. So I decided I'm gonna plant one plant. I know that it's not gonna produce a lot because I've tried it already in the past, but I need just a little bit for my dinner. So I'm gonna plant one plant and just harvest whatever it decides to produce. So I am gonna mix them all together in this planter because I only have this one big pot left where I had my blueberry, and I don't want to put any more pots on the floor because, you know, the space is already pretty limited. So I'm just gonna mix them all into this one container. Okay, before I water everything, I want to show you two products that I'm going to be using to maintain and to take care of my veggie garden during summer. I haven't changed. I've been using the same stuff for years, and that's exactly the same thing I'm going to be using this season. So I have Alga Grow, which is an organic fertilizer for the growth phase. So for all of these plants that are just putting on growth, leafy growth, plants are non-flowering. So I'm going to use it on my lettuce, on my leafy greens. I'm also going to use it on herbs. But herbs grow better, they taste better, they smell better when you don't over fertilize them. So I don't tend to fertilize my herbs a lot. I'm gonna fertilize them maybe like once a month at maximum, because if you over fertilize them, they will grow vigorously, but they may lose their flavor and aroma. But all the leafy greens and everything else is gonna get Alga Grow. And then all the flowering plants like my tomatoes, my strawberries, my zucchini, what else do I have? Alpine strawberries, they're all gonna get Alga Bloom, which is an organic fertilizer rich in potassium and phosphorus. That are two minerals that your plant needs the most when it's in the flowering phase. So more flowers equals more fruit. So both of these are organic, both of these contain the most important nutrient for your plant to grow healthy, to produce abundantly. They are also enriched with algae extracts. I've been a huge fan of these for years, and that's what I'm using in my garden every season. You know what? I'm actually gonna try the Nina Neutron tomatoes. I haven't tried them yet, and I see there's a couple that are ripe already, so I'm gonna pick the biggest one. It's absolutely amazing. Look how small this plant is. It's like barely 10 centimeters tall, and look at the amount of tomatoes it has. So let's harvest some. Alright, I'm very curious. It's actually pretty good. It's very good. I would not expect them to taste this well with only like maybe 2.5 hours of sunlight. The ones on the railings get about 4 hours of sunlight, and I already grew micro dwarfs on the railings, so I knew that this more or less is gonna work, but these are a really nice surprise. Really tasty. Alright you guys, everything is planted. Thank you so much for joining me today for this evening gardening session. I hope that you enjoyed it and you found some inspiration for your own garden. If you did, I would appreciate if you would leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more container gardening content. Thanks so much for joining me today, and we will see each other in the next video next week.